and say welcome everyone to the Plasticene Kickoff webinar. We are very excited to have you all here. As you see, this webinar is being recorded and we will have it posted on our website, plasticene.no afterwards. And only the presenters and our work package leaders should have access to the microphone and cameras. So if you notice that your microphone or camera is on, please do mute yourself, and we'll have the opportunity to ask questions in the chat at the end of the webinar. So Taya, if you could please go to the next slide. And we will have the welcome from our project leader, Mimi.
Thank you so much, Emily. And welcome everyone to the official kickoff of the Plasticene project. So my name is Mimi, and I'm the research director for the Department of Climate and Environment at Sintef Ocean, but I'm also the project manager for Plasticene. And Plasticene is a collaborative project which has received funding from the Norwegian Research Council in collaboration with the Norwegian Retailers Environment Fund. And the total budget of this project is just over 14.5 million Norwegian krona. And the project period runs from this year and throughout 2024. So if you would move to the next slide, please. So as you know, plastic is a fantastic material and has many uses. But if it's astray, it's a major and growing environmental problem. So in the Plasticene project, we aim at developing knowledge and systems that will help to keep the plastic in use and preventing it from becoming litter in nature. Or, as phrased in the primary objective of the project, to develop new knowledge, research capacity and tools towards addressing sustainable plastic use in Norway. So if you go to the next slide, please. As you can see, the project is divided into 6 work packages. And the first 3 are a bit more technical of nature and aimed at determining the plastic material flow and value chains in Norway and increasing the knowledge on the composition of major plastic material streams. And this is needed to improve resource utilization of plastic production and assessing the value creation of implementation of circular business models and so on. And in addition, we have 2 work packages that are aimed more at developing method for assessing the effectiveness of regulatory mitigation measures for decreasing plastic emissions and increasing the circularity of plastics, and also to explore how regulatory processes and adaptation measures can affect future scenarios for different sectors at different levels of analysis and to alleviate pressures. So if you would go to the next slide, please. We are very proud that we have a nice Plasticene reference group, and this is really important for the project. And it is composed of stakeholders who cover the entire plastic value chain in Norway. So their role will hopefully be to supply the project both with data, but also importantly with advice on how to ensure validation of results, effectiveness of policy actions that we suggest, and of course the user implementation of project results. So here you can see some of the stakeholders that have already expressed an interest in participating in the reference group. And this was done at the stage of the application, but it's still very possible to join the project as a stakeholder, either as an interest in the reference group or if you want to interact with the project in other ways. So please contact us if you are interested, and then we can make it happen. So I'm also very happy to that several of our important stakeholders have accepted to share their views with us here today on this important topic. So please, if you would go on, Emily.
Yes, and also Taya, if you could go to the next slide. A brief agenda of the day. As Mimi just stated, we will have presentations from our stakeholders. Afterwards, we'll move on to the central themes of the Plasticene project. So if you're familiar with Norwegian Research Council projects or EU projects, we call them work packages. So we have 5 work packages, and the work package leaders will give a brief overview of their work package. And then at the end, we will have time for questions and answers, and you can ask your questions in the chat. So without further ado, if you could go to the next slide, please. We have Susie from Aon, our very first stakeholder presentation. So take it away, Susie.
Hi, and thank you. Thank you so much that I get the chance to be here. Some of you might know me before from my earlier guise as a SynTef researcher, where I worked on sustainability in plastics and circular economy. But as of August, I hopped over from research to industry side to finally practice what I preach. So I'm going to talk about my new company that I've joined, Ion. You can go to the next slide, Emily. Or whoever it is. Yeah, so Ion is a brand new company. It was only founded in December last year, and it's now sort of starting to scale up. And I don't need to tell the people here how necessary the Plasticene project is, but Ion is particularly concerned with the upscaling of circularity for plastic because of these four big drivers that we see pushing the commercial direction towards circular plastic. One is that as of today, only 15% of plastics globally are recycled, but market analysis shows that there is relatively easy. When I say relatively easy, take it with a pinch of salt. Scope for at least another 60% to be recycled and taken onto the market. So it's a huge potential for scaling up. Because of the public awareness and the environmental impacts, governments are starting to really crank up the pressure and bringing in new regulations to increase plastics recycling, which is affecting, of course, industry. And on the other hand, from industry yourself, you have some drivers because especially consumer-facing companies are starting to make really quite ambitious, but also quantifiable, concrete pledges to start using plastic materials more responsibly, to recycle more, use more recycled content, reduce waste, and so on. But one of the key factors here is also we all know that governments, companies, pretty much everybody has a climate target and a reduction of CO2 target that they're trying to reach these days. And when you look at the different strategies for industry and commercial organizations to abate their CO2, mechanical recycling of plastic products is one of the cheapest and most effective ways of reducing your CO2 emissions within an organization. This is based on just existing technology. So that's why Ion has got our drive from, can you say. You can go to the next slide, please. Because despite all these factors, there's a real mismatch today, a tension, if you like, between the amount of plastics that are being used in a linear fashion and building up a pile of waste and lying there ready and waiting as a secondary material resource. And companies that want to take them into use in their production. There's a real mismatch there between supply and demand. These materials that are piling up in rubbish dumps or even worse, going to energy utilization and so on, they're not available to the companies that want to start using recycled fractions into their products. So it's a real mismatch between these two sides of the coin here, and this is something that definitely has to be overcome by initiatives, for example, like the Plasticene Project and Ion. You can go to the next slide, because this is a problem that Aker BioMarine, a company in the Aker family, discovered the last few years. So Aker BioMarine, for those of you that don't know, they do krill fishing in the Antarctic, and they started looking closer into their waste streams. What did they have of waste? They wanted to start handling their waste more responsibly. They had biological waste streams that they looked at, and they were able to start utilizing those biological streams into things like protein shakes and other things. But then they were left with this technical side of the materials in their waste stream. And these were typically plastic materials, nets and so on, that they didn't have space for. So they started looking into, we're going to use this, we're going to start putting it into these products and so on. And then they realized that actually we need a full-time team to do this. And this is so far outside of the scope of our core business, we don't have any interest to do this. At which point, of course, Aker being Aker said, aha, herein lies a business opportunity. Because there is nobody that a company like Aker BioMarine can today outsource their plastic circularity needs to. And that's where ION was born, because there is a real need for a company that can go in and bring in what we're calling circularity as a service. And Arca is in a position to come with not just financial muscles, but also a broad experience of industrially scaling new solutions. So that's where ION came into existence in December last year. And you can go to the next slide. So to explain a little bit more about what is it that ION actually does. So ION has all this material available to them. For example, the plastics that come from Arca-Marine. So we've got sort of high density polyethylene and some polypropylene and some polyamine. And what could happen is that ION could be taking those fractions and making them into nice usable pellets and selling them on for somebody else to use in their production. But you know, that's only part of the story, because you also need to be able to take back that material to get it into a circular loop. So ION also could offer waste management services, and we do. But moreover than that, what ION actually does is supply a whole circularity as a service. What this means is not only we provide materials and also provide a return system and take them and then give them back again. So we've got these materials going around in really tight, solid, well-controlled loops. But on top of that, we provide this third-party verification of the environmental impact, which companies are now having to start reporting, and hold people's hands, hold organizations' hands who aren't in the business of plastic recycling. So that's where we are. We offered a full circularity as a service model, and this is how we see that ION is going to have the biggest impact by decoupling the service that we're selling from resource use. So we're going to have a big impact. You can go to the next slide. And this is how we're going to actually do it. What ION actually sits on is a huge digital information system. So we track all the materials that are going in and out of these well-controlled loops, and we provide the customers with product design so that they know how these materials can be included in their products and how you can best keep them in these loops. We provide supply chain management, complete traceability of the materials, and of course, the handling of the materials. We do not own any processing infrastructure ourselves. Everything else, all the like the recycling and the injection molding of new products and so on, is outsourced to contract manufacturing according to what our particular customer needs. So, and our customers on the other side are both materials customers, people who have materials that they want to get rid of or to be put into a circular loop responsibly, but we also have customers who have products that they want to make more circular. You can go to the next slide. So this is where we are today. After some market analysis, ION has taken focus on hard plastics in what's called semi-durable products. So nothing that's going to be sitting in a building for 30 years, but not single-use plastics either. And of polyethylene and polypropylene. And this kind of product is the typical product that we as consumers meet every day. Two of our customers you will know of, it's McDonald's. We supply already trays to McDonald's for the whole of the Nordic countries. We're also supplying Mini, the food retailer, with shopping baskets. So if you go into Mini and you start picking up, look and see if it says made of marine plastic, because this is coming via ION. And we see massive scope for upscaling in just this sector alone. You can go to the next slide. So all in all, what we provide is a full service with documented, third-party verified environmental impact for our customers, complete traceability of the materials that we will loop for our customers in well-controlled quality material loops. We also offer ban protection, because a lot of companies out there have said, we're going to do this without actually knowing how they're going to do it. So ION will turn up and will say, we will help you to achieve your circularity goals that you've said you're going to make. And of course, because we're part of the Arca family, we are going to provide seamless operation, which means that we are going to fix it for you so that our customers don't have to be the plastic circularity experts. That's our job to do it for them. And that's my presentation of ION.
Thank you so much, Susie. We are very sad to see you go as a project partner, but we're glad to have you as a stakeholder with your new company.
I'm very happy to be involved. I'm really keen to see what comes out of the Plasticene project. I think it's really important. We're never going to get anywhere near approaching circularity for plastics if we don't know what we have going around in the country. So this is really important. I wish you the very best of luck with the project.
Thank you so much. So now we are going to move on to Johannes with Granbook Norway. So Johannes, yes, I see you there. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Am I sharing my own presentation or are you controlling the slides?
No, we are controlling the slides. So if you just say next, we will be happy to move forward.
Okay, you changed the first slide because I planned to introduce myself in the first slide, but no worry. My name is Johannes Daas. I'm head of development for Granbook Norway, and I'm also associate professor at product design at Oslo Met. And I realized that I probably should have started with an introduction of Granbook Norway as an organization, listening to Susie's brilliant presentation of ION. Hopefully, Granbook Norway is somewhat more well known to many of the audience. But for those of you who don't know us, we are a producer responsibility organization for packaging in Norway. And we have been in business for the last 25 years, and we are by far the dominating actor in the market. So the majority of Norwegian plastic packaging is taken care of by us. Next slide, please. We've seen, as you probably all of you have noticed, and I guess that's also the reason for why you are running this project, is that we've seen this dramatic increase in attention on plastic and the challenges of plastic, and for our sake, for plastic packaging. And we really felt this a year ago when first Folkeopplysningen, a Norwegian television program, had a program focusing on the circularity of packaging materials, which was followed up by a debate in national television the following evening. And naturally, it's a pleasure when the rest of the world is interested in what you're working on. So, I mean, that's positive, and that's something we really enjoy. But there are some challenges coming out of this, where it's rather frustrating when you sit and work on it, where you see that the media doesn't manage to cover it in a good way. Because if there are people in Norway who don't believe in source separation, they believe it's a waste of time. I'm going to later on prove why that's wrong. But if you wanted to find evidence for that opinion in these programs, you could find it by cherry picking what facts you listen to. There's also a challenge that it tends to be communicated that the producers aren't doing their job. They're just stupid. That's the reason we have the problem. But that's also not the case. And a lot of, there's a very large potential for improvement, no doubt about it. But at the same time, there's a lot of producers out there doing a really good job and working really hard on trying to solve the problems. Next slide, please. And as long as we want, for instance, potato chips that aren't that have a certain shelf life and is nice and crisp and not stale when you open the bag, it requires barrier properties of the packaging material that are very complicated and difficult to optimize for circularity and for recycling. And it's kind of forgotten that the packaging's main purpose is not to be recycled. The packaging's main purpose is to take care of the product, to make sure that we reduce food waste and that the product is not destroyed during the package or during the transportation and sales periods. And then in addition, it should be then possible to recycle. So that's kind of an element that is important to keep in the back of our mind. Next slide, please. And what we're seeing is that we're facing, and the Norwegian market and actually the whole European market are facing increasing demands for plastic packaging recycling. So by now, our target towards Norwegian authorities is 30%. By 2025, it should be 50%, and 2030, it should be 55%. So in other words, we really need, and not only Granbook Norway, but the whole industry needs to really step up the attention and to reduce the leakages we see from the circular material flows to be able to reach these targets. Next slide, please. And in order to do so, it's necessary to analyze the material flow and the life cycle of the packaging, and to find out where do we lose material during this life cycle. Because the packaging is produced by some raw material, and then you package the product in it, and there's a distribution phase where it's being sent maybe from China or maybe from the farmer next door, but it's being distributed somewhere to a place where someone can purchase it. And then once you have purchased the product in the packaging and you take the product out of it, in most cases the packaging is then magically transformed from being packaging to being waste. And I'm a product designer, so for me that's a very interesting kind of moment in the existence of the materiality. But for you as a consumer, it's kind of the stage where the packaging is packaging. It takes care of your cheese or chips or TV or whatever it is. And then boom, it's not packaging anymore. It's waste, you need to get rid of it. And then ideally it's being then sent to recycling, it's being collected and transported and then sent to a sorting facility. To be able to recycle packaging, you need to separate it in, you need to remove all non-plastic material. That's one thing. You need to remove all the contamination, but you also need to split it into the individual polymers. I guess this is too basic for the most of you, but I don't know the level of competence among all of you in the audience. Anyways, you split it into the necessary, you sort it into the necessary fractions, send it to recycling, you get recycled material that is available in the market to make new products, for instance, new packaging. But this is the ideal scenario. Next slide, please. And it's a lot of material going through this life cycle. So for our members in 2020, they brought 141,650 tons of plastic packaging to the Norwegian market. That's a lot of material that needs to be taken care of. Next slide, please. And for us to try to find out how we can reach the targets, we need to look at the leakages. And immediately we find the largest one. In 2020, only 45% of the plastic packaging that was brought to the market was actually sent to recycling. The rest of it, 55%, was sent directly to incineration. It was separated as residual waste and was burnt, and in most cases in Norway, it then ends up as energy and heat recovery. But this is not circular economy. This is not recycling. So that's kind of the first step we really need to target, is how can we get more of the material being separated into the right material flow so it's available for the sorting and recycling industry. We will by no way be able to reach a 50% target if we lose 55% in the first step of the cycle. Next slide, please. So for the packaging producers, or for the people working on how kind of bringing the packaging to the market, there are two questions to ask here in the beginning. How can you reduce the chance that your packaging ends up in nature? This is, luckily for Norwegian packaging, it amounts to a very small fraction of the packaging on the market. But any packaging ending up in nature is too much, any plastic packaging. So there's a zero acceptance limit here. So if you have a type of packaging where it's likely that it's being consumed while hiking, while on the beach, while in the boat, whatever, and there's a likelihood that it ends up not in the waste system, how can you avoid that risk or minimize that risk? The second part here has a much larger volume interest in the case now, because that's how can you increase the chance that your packaging is being source separated correctly. Next slide, please. Here we need to look into behavioral psychology and behavioral science, because if you design a system where it's too complex for the user, they are going to find a shortcut. They're not going to follow your system. So the same way as someone avoids walking on the concrete path around the tree, they make this crossing over the lawn to make a shortcut. And that's exactly the same way as we as consumers, and also in the business in many cases, will behave if things are experienced as being too difficult. Next slide, please. And for a lot of packaging, it's rather confusing. So this is a random tube of some face product. It looks like it's designed of at least two different types of plastic. It has this metallized film that might confuse some users and make them believe maybe it's actually a metal part here. And the information here, there's a great array of pictograms saying HDP, LDP, PP. This says a lot to me. To most people, it doesn't. A symbol for throwing it in the bin, a symbol for that the fee has been paid to take care of it. This, many people believe, means that it's recyclable. A symbol for the volume, and then a symbol that first time I saw it, I thought it meant that I need to split it into different parts before I separate it. This is actually a French symbol for recycling. So when an average consumer sees this kind of labeling, they are going to be confused. Next slide, please. And especially in Norway, we have a variety of different sorting systems. I don't have time to go into that now, but depending on which municipality you live in, the system for how the plastic is collected is also different, because each municipality can decide this on their own. Next slide, please. So the easiest way to deal with this is to label your packaging correctly. There were new labels last year. This is a common labeling system for all the Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Iceland. And it's a great improvement. You can go into grønpunkt.no emballagemerking, or just URL or type in emballagemerking.no, and you find our website where you can download the pictograms and get advice on how you should label your packaging and which packaging should be labeled in what way. Next slide, please. And then by adding the label to the packaging, you make it very easy for the user who is interested in seeing how you should source separate to do it the right way. Next slide, please. And if you have a combined packaging, you can then combine the labels. And here it's difficult for you to see maybe, but it says on the text that you should sort the tray as cardboard and the foil as plastic. So you make it very intuitive. It's kind of, as long as you bother to try to read, you're going to understand how to deal with it. Next slide, please. But there's so much more to it. And this has been something, I have a PhD in design for sustainable behavior. So this was one of my kind of issues when I started in the business, was that this has gotten far too little attention. So we're actually, in 2 weeks, we're launching, as far as I know, the first guide in the world in how you design your packaging to improve the likelihood that it's going to be source separated correctly. This is in Norwegian now because our first version will be in Norwegian, but it will be translated to English later on. It will consist of this poster being kind of the very brief lists, and then a corresponding website with additional information and details and inspiring pictures and so on. So next slide, please. This will be launched on September 21st. And if any of you are interested in attending the launch, you're welcome to send me an email and I can send you the invitation. It's a free and open webinar for anyone who's interested, really, but primarily packaging producers and municipalities. Next slide, please. Okay, I need to move on for us to get through the cycle. So 45% of our plastic packaging in the Norwegian market was source separated correctly in 2020. Then this is then being collected and it's being transported and it's being sent to the sorting facilities. Next slide, please. And there we have another leakage, because there you remove all the stuff that was source separated wrong. The moose heads or the running shoes or the cardboard packaging, for that sake, that was put into the plastic recycling bin is being separated out here. In addition to multi-combination, multi-material packagings that aren't really suited or that's not possible to sort correctly. Next slide, please. And then this is being sent to a recycling facility where you have an additional loss of packaging that's not possible or suitable for recycling. So in the end, in 2020, 28.7% of the packaging that was brought by our members to the Norwegian market was sent to the market again as a regranulate, as available recycled material. This was the first time actually that we did not reach our target of 30%. That's primarily, well, many reasons, but the main reason is actually that it was a difference in a change from that year from the previous on the measurement point. Until then, we were measured on the one step back where we had 37.3. But we're just up there. And one aspect here I think is interesting is that I far too often hear that there is no recycled material available. Well, there was more than 40,000 tons available of recycled plastic material from the Norwegian market alone. So it's probably a question more of availability of the right quality, or that it's a complex and a new market where you need more information on how to get hold of it and how you can understand the variations in the quality within the recycled material. Next slide, please. But then, in order to improve this, you may need to make sure that your packaging can be sorted and recycled. Next slide, please. And for any of you who have tried to do this on plastic, it's really, really complex because there are so many aspects that you need to take into consideration and that affect each other. So you have the additives, you have barrier materials, you have the color, you have sleeve, you have ink, you have glue, and so on, and all of this affects it. Next slide, please. So in order to help our members try to solve this, we have developed a recycling calculator that's freely available for all our members, where you can add in all the details of your packaging, of any packaging material, and you're being informed on the amount of, or kind of the recyclability of the whole packaging, and what aspects of the packaging are reducing the recyclability. It's still in beta, but we're working hard on getting it out of beta and over to 1.0. Yeah, we hope to get there soon. Next slide, please. We also have another thing I'm going to spend the last 2 minutes telling you about, and this is something called Plastløftet, the plastic pledge. Next slide, please. And this is a pledge where companies that want to deal with the plastic challenges in packaging can take the pledge to increase the use of recycled material, avoid unnecessary plastic, and design for recycling. Next slide, please. And in 2020, more than 60 companies not only took the pledge, but they also fulfilled the plastic pledge, where they do projects on this and they report the results to us. And as you see here, you have many of the largest actors in the Norwegian market did do this in 2020, and I haven't heard of anyone who have skipped out of it. So we have even more now in 2021. Next slide, please. So I'm going to wrap up now. This might have been a lot of detail for some of you. So if you haven't been able to follow anything I've been saying, I have one takeaway message for you. If you can choose to have a monomaterial, not to combine materials, if that's kind of functional for your design and for the material, the technical properties you need, go for it, because a monomaterial is easier to source separate, it's less confusing, it's easier to sort, and it's easier to recycle to high quality material that can then be used to making new products in the end. Next slide, please. Thank you for your attention. Are there any questions, or do you want to take that in the end? I'm unable to follow the whole webinar today, so it might be better to contact me if you have questions, if we can't take them now.
We do have planned questions at the end, so if you all have questions for Johannes, you can send him an email directly. But I do want to thank you so much, Johannes, for being here. I have a feeling you're going to get some emails from us at the Plasticene for attending the Granbook Norway launch. And yes, just thank you so much for being here today. And yes, his email is in the chat.
And thank you for inviting me. I just realized my email was not on the last slide, so I added it in the chat if you have questions or want to attend the webinar.
Thank you so much, Johannes.
Thank you. Bye.
So Thea, if you could please go to the next slide, and something a bit interesting here of how we laid out the presentations. Johannes was talking about companies taking the plastic pledge, and we have one here with us today. Kjell Erik from Impact Norway. Are you here with us? And
I'm here with you.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting us.
Welcome, and please take it away.
Thank you. Next slide, please. We started working with thinner plastic and optimizing packaging 10 years ago. At that time being, nobody was very interested in what we were doing, and we were told that this is not working. But we kept believing in it because we saw that we had some issues environmentally and also, of course, economically. We start using our users the simple question why. Then we understood that the users around did their packaging based traditionally. They used the material they always done because they have always done it. Therefore, we started testing different kind and thinner films with good result even this early. During the last 5 to 7 years, the production methods of plastic has increased and become very well. We have new possibilities, and we use what we call nanotech that has given us the possibility to make plastic films that's never been seen before. Next slide, please. This figure, I guess most of you know it. We have made this over map during everyday work. We believe that the easiest way to lower our CO2 footprints and also reduce the amount of waste is to reduce what we use every day. Secondary, we need to reuse and recycle when this is possible. We work a lot with stretch films. Today, it's difficult to use recycled material in stretch film, but it's a really good material to put into the recycling circle. We work continuously using recycled material in other products. Every time we give an offer, we give also an offer of recycled material. In this way, we see that the users all over Norway are doing a little bit every day. Next slide, please. It's a little about our technology when we use to produce stretch film. We use something called nanotechnology. This is a new way of producing stretch film. We have the possibilities to mix more layers compared to the traditional film, which normally is 5 to 9 layers. We have today 55 layers. This makes the films much stronger than the older films, and we can make it really thin. Today we are at 10 micron films, and we say that the common use today is 20 micron. So only by doing this kind of production and technology, we have half the use of waste. We're trying to explain, because I wish I could show you this, because it's easier showing you in real life. But we have illustrated what we are doing, because in the traditional film, you have layers on top of each other. With the nanotech, we are blending it together, and this makes the films really strong with properties that we have never seen before in plastic. Next slide, please. I'm trying to give you an example of what we're doing. So yesterday we packed a pallet in our own warehouse. This is a pallet for shipping. We did it first with the traditional 20 micron film, and we use our new Revolution 10 micron film and compared it together. The pallet size is a normal Euro pallet. We do it on a machine with a 250% pre-stretch and a secondary stretch 20. So the total stretch of film is 270%. I'm not sure if everybody who's listening know the terms of this, but we are also doing things on the machines. We are pre-stretching the film to lower the use even more. With this kind of pre-stretching, 1 meter on the roll will become approximately 3.6 meters on the pallets. So in use, 1 roll is like 3.6 rolls in real life. Next slide, please. With the traditional film, 20 micron, we had 102 grams of film on the pallet you saw on the last slide. With the 10 micron new Revolution, we lowered it to 46 grams. This is a reduction of use of film for each pallet on 55%. Next slide, please. If you say that the customer is palletizing approximately 100 pallets a day, you see the reduction is really huge. Yearly, you more than half in it. Economically, you have a benefit of approximately 20%. So we also save money when you save the film. And in CO2 footprint, you reduce it with approximately 2,800 kilos. Next slide. And for the end users, for the people working out there, the tomorrow will feel just like yesterday. They don't have to do anything about the machines. They don't have to change their way of working. Actually, it's easier because on one roll of film, we have 3,600 meters with our Revolution. With the traditional film, you have 1,700 meters. So we have to work less, actually, with a new kind of film. Next slide, please. In the close future, we are probably at the end of thinner films and pre-stretching machines because mainly we work with safety. We don't use stretch film and palletizing material for fun. It's for safety and protection. And you need to have some kind of holding force and stability during transportation. And with the 270% pre-stretch and 10 micron film, you end up with approximately 3 to 4 micron film on the pallet, and that's the minimum when you're testing today. So I think that we are at the breaking point with the thickness of the film and also with the pre-stretch of the machine. We are working on introducing more bio-based PA mixtures. Of course, we see that in the future, in close future, this will be the new plastic. A fun fact is that the examples I gave you is actually done with biofilm. The 20 micron is the best biofilm I ever tested. It's a 20 micron with 50% biomaterial, and our Revolution is with 10% material. I think that is something we should think about when we are making our choices. 50% is not necessarily better than 10%. If you see the waste, it's the double waste anyway. So I think that reduce and then we import the new way of production. We're also working with recycled materials in the easiest films. We are launching a new film in the beginning next year. It's a 50 micron with 30% recycle. It's difficult to make stretch film with recycled material because we are stretching it so hard. But we have done a lot of testing and we launched a new product in the beginning next year as one of the first with 30%. We also see that as a buyer of a lot of recycled material using this in our products, we have to increase the quality of recycle. As Granbook mentioned earlier, this is important to get better use and more use of recycle in all kinds of products, we believe. We also believe that it will be a big focus on lowering the CO2 footprint. We know that there will be taxes and fees based on CO2. And of course, for the users, this is a cost. I'm sorry to say it, but I think that our success with thinner films will be much more difficult if the end users didn't save some kind of money. They're not only doing it because of the beneficial of the environmental question, but of course it's also a money question. So I think it's very important that we have some incentives to make people want to try new things. We are also working and hoping and really trying to do circular economy in practice. It's a really difficult thing, but in the future, we think that this will be possible and are really ready to try it. Next, please. That's what I had to say today. If you have any questions, contact us or send a mail.
Yes, thank you so much, Kjell Erik. If you aren't able to join for the rest of the webinar today, if you could please put your email in the chat so we can email you with questions.
You'll do that.
But, thank you so much for your presentation representing Impact Nor, and we hope to have you at some of our workshops in the future.
We are ready. Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.
You do the same.
Thank you.
So now, Thea, yes, thank you very much. Next, we have a presentation from Cecilia with Avfall Norge. Are you? Yes, I see you here. Perfect.
Can you hear me?
The floor is yours. Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. So my name is Cecilia Lind and I'm from Avfall Norge. We are the Waste Management and Recycling Association in Norway. Granbook and many of the other players that are involved in your projects are members in our associations. But I think that you are actually missing an important group of players in the project, which is the private companies that are handling almost 75% of the waste in Norway. So I would love to see one of their names up there in the first slides of your project. So that's a little message in the start here. Next slide, please. What we can bring to the table to this discussion is, of course, mainly what our members are doing, and they are doing the producer responsibility, as Johannes already has told you about. We have a lot of knowledge, of course, on recycling, on source separation and collection of plastics, about the sorting technology, and also about policy making. So I don't want to spend a lot of time here telling about Avfall Norge. I just want you to make sure that you know that we have over 200 members, which are many of them handling plastics in their everyday life and can help you with any kind of questions you might have during the project. So please feel free to contact us and we will set you in contact with the right company or person. Next slide, please. I'd like to start with a little red flag maybe, because there is a lot of plastic projects in Norway and they are all talking about the plastic problem. But what is actually the problem? There's obviously one problem with pollution and marine pollution and littering, and there is a problem with too little reuse and recycling. But we also have a problem of very much confusion about just in the audience and in the households about what to do, but also in the companies and in the businesses and in the within the producers. So there's a lot of confusion going on. And plastics are not plastics, and you know this, of course, but are we talking about plastic spoons, or are we talking about fishnets or tires or garden furniture? I think it's important to address these different plastic streams in different ways. They have different problems and different solutions. So clearing up the confusion would also be very much helpful from this project. And there is also often said that there is a problem with the demand for recycled plastic, but this is, as Johannes already said, mainly a problem with quality. If you produce plastics of the right quality, there's a buyer somewhere in the world for these plastics. We are still producing a lot of stuff from plastics, so it's not like there's not a market for the secondary raw material, but it has to be in the right quality and the right price at the right time. And this brings me to the next slide. Virgin raw materials are cheap and Norwegian labor is expensive. So creating circular solutions for new material streams in Norway, it's always crucial that we keep the focus on scale in order to keep the costs per unit down. And if you're not able to scale up and keep the costs down, we will never be able to beat recycled products will not be able to beat the cheap raw materials. So please focus on the scale and focus on the costs. And also remember that there is just one market for raw materials. It's not like there's one market for secondary raw materials and another market for virgin raw materials. It's all just one market out there, and it's usually not in Norway. We do not produce many of the things that we use in our everyday life, they're not produced in Norway, which means that the market for our recycled plastics, it's not here. And this is also a very important aspect, I think, also for this project to have in mind. Next slide, please. About regulatory support, which I understand is also a part of the project. And I like to start by saying that we already have a lot of legislation, which are either forbidding or prohibiting all the things that we don't like, and makes it mandatory or to do things that we actually want. But despite of all this legislation, we are still facing the same problems. So it might not always be more legislation being the solution, but actually making all the players on the field actually following the legislation and understanding what it's actually about. So that said, I think there is a lot going on in the EU, and the waste legislation in Norway is basically 100% based on the EU legislation. And the packaging directive, for instance, there's been a review of the rules quite recently, and one of the highlights there is, of course, to increase the recycled content. And I think this is the most important pathway forward, and that will actually also help creating demand in the market for more secondary raw material, which will again affect also the littering, because in the minute that the plastics has a value, there is you trigger different aspects along the value chain. Also, of course, green public procurements is important. There was a new report given yesterday, I think. I have not had the time to read it yet, but public procurements can play an important role, either through the legislation or not, but at least the public taking some kind of responsibility for demanding the secondary raw materials. And this is maybe an easier way to the target than the often mentioned taxation on virgin material, which is quite hard to set up in a good way for a small economy like Norway. Okay, last slide, I think. So please make sure you define the problem. Make sure you spend enough time in the start to map all the projects that are actually there, so that you make sure that you actually find out something new and can build on what's already been done, because there's so many projects going on. And it's good because we need to solve this, but please make sure that that you spend the knowledge already there, and keep your eyes on the market for the recycled plastics, and look for what will help creating demand for the secondary raw materials. I think that's crucial. Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Cecilia, for being here today and for your advice. I'm going to send you an email after about the private companies in Norway you have the top suggestions for. And also, I know you have to leave early today, so if you could please put your email in the chat if anyone has questions for you.
Sure, I will. Please feel free to take on.
Thank you so much. So if we could please move on to the next slide. We have Josefina here, and yes, Josefina, I see you already have logged on with looping, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm Josephine Brecky. I am Head of Operations and Marketing at Looping, and today I will tell you about how we are reducing the need for disposable plastic by developing reusable transport and storage packaging for the construction industry. It's a mouthful. Next slide, please. So Looping is a company that produces and delivers reusable packaging in a circular business model. Our whole mission is that we believe in a world without waste, where resources are cycled and creating more and more sustainable value chain. We make this happen by enabling reuse through accessible and cost-efficient alternatives for actors that want to reduce unnecessary material consumption. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about us. We were founded in 2017. We are all about enabling circular solutions Our headquarters are at Skien in Oslo and production facilities in Lithuania. We have local storage in Lørenskog, right outside of Oslo, and we're 6 employees in Norway, 6 employees in Lithuania, and 1 in Sweden. Next slide, please. So a little bit about what we do. I think you can just divide it into 4 categories just to kind of get an overview. Mainly we design and develop products made for reuse in close collaboration with our clients. That's number 1. Then we produce, so we produce each product at our production unit in Lithuania. Then we deliver reuse as a service. So what we have seen is that even if we deliver reusable products, a huge challenge is to actually do the reuse part. What do you do after using it? So what we do is that we deliver the products and then we pick them up after use. And then we inspect, repair, if need be, and clean the products so that they are ready for the next use again. And then we deliver them again. Then we also offer a logistics technology. And this is all about tracking inventory and tracking the reduction of plastic waste and getting an overview both of what we have and what the clients have. Next slide, please. Then a little bit about our first product. Our first product was the module cover, which you see on the right side here. And so far we have eliminated 60 tons of plastic across our customer base. What this does, though, is not just, we reduce the plastic. That's good. We even eliminate the use of disposable plastic by 95%. We also reduce mounting time by 75%. So a process that used to take over an hour is now taking 7 minutes. So there's a lot of value to gain here across the whole process. Then we also reduce the use of crane lifts by 15%. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then you see there's a little video in the corner there, but we can kind of skip through that. So by introducing a reusable cover, we are able to eliminate all waste from packaging while creating a more efficient product for assembly and disassembly. And after 3 years of research and development and organic customer growth, we have demonstrated that reusable packaging can be efficient, profitable, and sustainable alternative to single-use plastic, both for us and for our clients. Next slide, please. And then I would like to just show you this little video, just so, not to make a wild assumption here, but maybe not everybody knows how the modules used to be packaged. So this is what we're kind of eliminating. And what you see is that it's not really just about, the plastic, but it's also about the process, the nails, and all the manual labor that goes into it. And then we have the next slide, which is another video there. And this video shows you our alternative. And this alternative also shows that it's not only time and waste, but it's also a safer work environment that we create for the people who package these modules. There we go. Next slide, please. And overall, we have reduced over 60 tons of single-use plastic and 120 tons of waste. And this is what we've seen has a lot of value for both us and our clients. Module cover significantly reduces the time spent on packaging. And we see that the people who actually package these enjoy their job and their days and everything more when they use the module cover. Next slide, please. We also offer a technology, and Looping has developed a strong IT backbone, providing complete control over product flow and logistics. I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but POS is a competitive advance in the market, allowing us to scale faster while offering the customer a seamless onboarding and customer journey. And we do this by RFID tags on all products. We get a full overview of stock and inventory. We do reporting and damage statistics so that we can continuously improve our product throughout its lifetime. We do have a customer portal and rental history and easy invoicing. And what we do hope is that since we deliver this product in a rental model, our customers rent the products from us so that we can always make sure that we can improve our products throughout and nothing ever goes to waste. Next slide, please. So the module cover is one thing, but of course we see a strong potential for the product to be applied to other use cases in the construction industry where the demand for reusable transport packaging is growing. There is so much transport and storage packaging in the construction industry, and a lot of it has to stand outside for a long time and gets damaged. And what we see here is that we've done a few projects with, for example, Handelsmiljøfond, HMF, and we've done a project with Bærum kommune. And what we do is that we're trying to create better alternatives, not just better for the planet, but also better for the work environment. So number one, we have a cover for wood and timber construction materials that we'll be launching within the next few months. We're working with Bergen Holm on this. And it's going to be awesome. It's really going to reduce the use of single-use plastic in this industry. We also have the module loader, which is a system that replaces a disposable module loader. This will be reusable. It will be made of recycled plastic, and it's going to really change that industry. We have also made a cover for containers that will be a great alternative to these nets that are usually hanging over that, you know, let in water and make everything heavier. So it'll be a great alternative. And then we're also making a cover for a prefabricated wooden elements. And what we see is that there's just such huge potential for reusable packaging so that we can eliminate everything that is disposable, that's just used once. Next slide, please. And overall, Looping aims to help businesses stay competitive and future fit in a world where climate change and technology will dramatically change the way we manage resources. And overall, by eliminating linear plastic, we increase our customers' resource efficiency, saving time and cost while increasing ESG performance. And what we see is a movement where stakeholders are setting demands. We're seeing ESG compliance and reporting and higher expectations across the board. As well as, you know, sustainability and this disruption of linear business models. We're always talking about circular business models and how can we make this more applicable for circular economy in Norway and across Europe. We're also changing customer demands, and we also see a huge change in how politicians view regulatory regimes and how they talk about climate change. And with the election coming up in Oslo, we see that or in Norway, we see so many discussions around climate and circular economy, and it's an exciting time to be part of this movement. And next slide, thank you so much for having me. That was kind of my pitch. Think reuse, make reusable products, try to reduce your disposable plastic use, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Josephine. That was a very exciting presentation on looping, and we can't wait to see what the fall and spring brings with the new product rollouts.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. So next, yes, if we can move on to the next slide. Good. Thank you, Thea. We have our very own Celia, who's also a work package leader in our project. She will be presenting a new legally binding global treaty. One of the presentations I'm most excited about with the background in political science and international relations. So take it away, Celia.
Thank you. I see that my title has been screwed up in the presentation, but never mind. So my name is Celia. I work as a policy advisor at WWF. I'm also a part of the Plasticene project, which is great. And before I'm going to do a presentation on my work package, I will do a presentation on a coming, or hopefully coming, new legally binding treaty on plastic pollution. So next slide. First, a little bit about us. WWF is one of the world's largest environmental organizations. We are present in more than 100 countries. And we work to conserve the world's biological diversity, ensure that the use of renewable natural resources is sustainable, and promote the reduction of pollution and wasteful consumption. And we have a network-wide initiative called No Plastic in Nature. So that's our end goal, and we're very optimistic about reaching that target. It is network-wide, so we work throughout every country we have on this issue. And one part of that initiative is policy or global policy. And that part of the initiative is led from Oslo, Norway, and we are seeing a lot of exciting developments. So next slide. First, I have a catchphrase for you. Plastic pollution is a global issue, and therefore it needs global solutions. As Cecilia said in her presentation, more and more legislations are coming to Norway, especially from the EU, but that's not the case in every corner of the world, and we need global solutions to tackle this problem. Next slide, please. So there are some current gaps and challenges in the global governance structure on plastic. There are no global rules on tackling this issue. So there are no standards or recommended practices that are used. There are no clear direction or ambition to where we're going and how we're going to tackle this problem. There are no reporting mechanisms. As you know, we don't have the information on how much plastic is in the Norwegian economy, and thus we do lack that information globally as well. There are no financial mechanisms on how we're going to organize this effort, and also we are lacking there are investment gaps in needed infrastructure, for example. And we also see that there are significant gaps in national and regional legislation and commitments on this issue if we are to reach the goal of no plastic in nature. And this is why we decided on working on the global treaty and putting a lot of effort into that. Next slide, please. So, a new international legally binding agreement. A new international agreement. We have a lot of those. So what could it provide? We see that it could or it will give us a global goal and therefore national targets in order to reach that global goal, and it has to be implemented in national action plans. So perhaps we will get reduction targets that every nation has to reach. We will also have a global architecture system to coordinate and report and review our targets and indicators in order to meet those. We will get an intergovernmental panel of experts and harmonize measurement and monitoring of plastic pollution at the global level. We will have global standards and regulations on high-risk materials and disposal methods. And we will have the needed implementation support for it to happen, i.e. finance, technology and capacity building. So this global treaty is very important to now get into place. And as I said, we're very optimistic. Next slide, please. And the reason for that is that we see that the academic basis for agreement is growing. More and more papers are on the treaty and how this can and will be effective. We have a clear civil society momentum led by us, but also others. The ministerial support is growing. Norway, the EU, Germany, and several other countries are champions for this treaty. And we're seeing leading businesses supported of the treaty as well. So large companies such as Nestlé are speaking out on the need for a new global treaty in order to have a global solution for the plastic problem. And since we're located in Norway, and we are in Norway now, next slide, I just wanted to say that us in WWF, we have this plastic navigator, which you can find online, and we are monitoring the process closely. And Norway has luckily been one of the champions for this treaty since 2018, when the world community started to talk about it. It started with a vision of no plastic pollution from Vidar Helgesen, at that point the climate minister in Norway. Took it to the UN, and there it grew. And next slide, which I think is my last. We have an opportunity now in February at UNEA to get this negotiation mandate for the global treaty secured. So a lot is happening, and we're very optimistic, so please get on board and ask questions if you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Celia. Great presentation and overview of the case for a global plastic treaty. And I hope to work closely with your work package and also at UNEA as well. It'll be very exciting. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Now we are moving over to the central themes, or as I said before, if you're familiar with projects in the Research Council, work packages. And yes, as Mimi said, of course, thank you so much to all of our stakeholders who came today, gave their presentations. Hopefully some of them will still be around at the end to answer questions. But if you have specific questions for any of the presentations, you can email me, or if they left their email in the chat, you can email our stakeholders directly. So if you could please go to the next slide. Without further ado, we'll start with work package 1 on plastic data. Shraddha?
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone, and thank you for really inspiring presentations. They were really gripping, and had a lot of fun hearing about some of the different initiatives and also some of the statistics on the packaging. What I also realized from most of the presentations is also that everyone thinks there is need for more numbers and more data. And I'm really excited that I got this challenging task in this project. And I would share how our approach is going to be to collect plastic data and also manage the data and also make it available for everyone in Norway. Next. Yes, so we aim to collect enough information so that we can map plastic flows and stocks in Norway. We aim to collect information of how much plastic is coming into Norway, how much plastic is going out, how much is in use, how much is in stocks, and also more importantly, like Celia mentioned, how much is lost in the nature. And we also want to make it accessible. We want to make it accessible to other researchers, companies, policymakers, and anyone who is interested in knowing how much plastic is actually there in the Norwegian economy, what can we do about it, and also what information can we make available to everyone. And of course, there will be some data gaps, as we can already imagine. There will be different data quality, different sources. So we will have to also identify these data gaps. And we also wish to give recommendations on how this can be made better, how can it be more transparent, and how can the registration of data can be made more smooth in order to have good data in the future. Next. So our approach will actually be to start from the trade statistics, look at all the registered statistics on how much plastic is coming in and the types of plastic that are coming in, also how much is manufactured, how much is going out. So that will be our starting point. Then we wish to also identify some product groups, some major bulk product groups and its applications in the different sectors, aquaculture, fisheries, agriculture, there are civil sectors, or there are actually unlimited uses. So it will be definitely a most challenging task to group these and also to channelize the applications. Like I said previously, we'll also identify the gaps and give recommendations, and the main output of our work package or our work will also be an online database that we want to make it accessible. And hopefully we also get some feedback into our work and into the data gaps and recommendations also from this online database. Yes, next. Like I mentioned, there are so many different users and so many different sectors, so many different activities that use plastic. So it will be, of course, a challenging task, but I can say that SINTEF and also Deloitte and so many other organizations have already very good reports, very good work done for packaging, fisheries, aquaculture, agriculture. So there is already a lot of information available on plastic use and applications and also some statistics. So there is some information available, but there is also a lot that we don't know. So it would be very interesting to first collect all the global or national data and then somehow generalize them to these different sectors and uses. Yes, and then I mentioned the database, and the main aim would be to enhance information exchange at the national level between private and public organizations to make it available to everyone. Also, in a way, collect data from different sources and consolidate it to one form and to make it user-friendly. Yeah. And of course, there will be some issues when it comes to confidentiality. The issues we plan to introduce some stakeholders in the work also, when we want to get as much unpublished data also into the project. However, there can be some issues regarding how accessible these can be. So we will have to work more closely with this. Yes, and I think this sums up mostly the work that we will be doing, and we will definitely collect a lot of data that will be useful for the work that's in the work package 2 on the modeling part. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Shraddha, very much. Next slide, please. Yes, and all of us who are work package leaders in the Plasticene project, we will be staying around until the question and answer. So we won't be putting in our emails in the chat. You can ask us directly. And without further ado, we'll move on to work package 2 with Anders Magnus at Deloitte.
Yes, hello everyone. So work package 2, please, next slide. So in this work package, we'll conduct a material flow analysis for the national inputs and output flows of plastics, as well as the stocks of plastics in the Norwegian economy. And then we'll also map the economic role on plastics in different sectors and industries. So initially, that means that we need to have a clear system definition, ensuring inclusion of all important stocks and flows in the system, and that the system will then be quantified based on the data collected in work package 1. And further on, then the MFA model will be expanded to multi-layer models, which will enable more detailed analysis of different kinds of plastics, and will also link up with work package 3 for the assessment of the emissions and flow of problematic substances through the value chain. So then the quantified MFA model will be used to assess the current plastic flows and develop some indicators. And these indicators will provide a benchmark for the current situation and then provide an important basis for goal setting and policy making, as well as inform other higher level international ambitions. So after mapping the volumes and the usage of plastics in the different sectors, then we'll look at the economic role of plastics in the major sectors. So we'll be doing that by using the trade data combined with data on productivity and output in different sectors and industries. And then that analysis, when we now have a combined picture of what are the volumes, what is the economic importance, then that will provide a basis for the selection of measures that is done in work package 4. And then we would also be able to feed back the results from work package 3 and 4 into the MFA model to look at potential effects of those measures that are identified. And we will, of course, also make this an open access model, as open as possible. We'll publish the data under a license that clearly specifies how it can be used. And we'll also make sure that we visualize the results in a way that is easily communicated. So next slide, please. I think we can, I just talked over this slide, so I think we can skip to the next one after this one. Here is an example of how such a material flow could look like. It's an example that is taken from a study on plastic packaging, which shows from the left how much is put on the market, and the second step shows how much is actually collected, and then the further steps shows how much is finally recycled. And the different colors show the different polymer types, and we are thinking that the results will be visualized somewhere, something like this, and of course for the entire plastic flows in Norway. So this will be a challenging task, but I believe with the work packages that we have put together, we are well prepared to take on this task. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Anders. If we could go to the next slide. Yes. And we will now move on to work package 3. Christian?
Yep, thank you very much. My name is Christian Karl. I work in SINTEF Industry in the Polymer Composite Materials Group, and there are also other SINTEF institutes working in our project. Next slide, please. As far as our competence areas are concerned, we work with all kinds of polymers, plastics, rubbers, composites, and development of modification of materials and surfaces, but also very important material process morphology property relationships, the polymer processing like injection molding, extrusion in different projects, and of course the mechanical, thermomechanical responses. We are interested in circular economy and sustainability projects like upgrading of materials, bio-based polymers, degradation. And we are pleased to offer our support to the industry regarding product development and material selection. Next slide, please. With respect to our labs, we have different facilities available to characterize materials. For instance, with different spectroscopy methods, IR spectroscopy, Raman spectroscopy, thermal characterization methods, but also microscopes and rheometers to analyze chemical and physical properties of different kinds of polymers and polymer blends. Next slide, please. With respect to mechanical testing, there are different facilities available, and we have a lot of experience in different projects regarding different polymer materials, and also combining material testing with numerical simulations like finite element method and aging and lifetime projects. And of course, with respect to the different other methods like wear and friction, adhesion, DMTA, and delatometry, a lot of other facilities are available. Next slide, please. In this work package 3, plastic characterization and circularity, we work to identify and characterize the plastic waste fractions with the greatest potential to circularity and analyze the potential impact and barriers for achieving that goal. There are different tasks. The main activities will be in the first quarter of 2022 to 2024. We work also on other work packages, but in this work package, we are focusing on selection of highly priority plastic streams, characterization of prioritized streams, and scenarios for achieving circularity and evaluate it using multi-criteria decision analysis and barrier analysis. The main outcomes are reports and in the end, reduced scientific contributions and publications, preferably open access. Next slide, please. Very pleased to contribute with our expertise and knowledge, experience regarding different topics with respect to plastics from aquaculture, commercially available chain extenders in, for instance, Project Lind. It was a new project, Plasticene, but also in other projects like Innoplastic, Pocoplast, we work on cleanup strategies and plastics from aquaculture. And we have the project SFI Biodegradable Plastics, where we develop new materials for improved biodegradability and compared with conventional materials to reduce ghost fishing effects and to assess the biodegradability of these materials. As mentioned earlier, the role of fillers, different fillers, plasticizers, chain extenders, and also mentioned already in the chat, are very important with respect to the development of different products and to understand different mechanisms regarding recycling in different projects. Yeah, thank you. Next one. There are different kind of products available. Susie mentioned it in the beginning, this sieving trays, but also I think there are different potentials, as we already worked in the PocoPlus project, and identified which could be interesting for applications like flower pots, garden furniture, or chairs, despite the challenges they are with respect to the look quality and role of additives, mechanical properties, and other challenges, which could be good inspiration to work on that in this project. And in the end, I would like to thank you for your attention and looking forward to your feedback.
Thank you, Christian. Next, perfect, thank you. And without further ado, for the sake of time and the sake of questions, we're going to move on to work package 4, where we will hear again from Celia.
Thank you. But now with the new background, the Plasticene background.
Yes.
So my name is Cecilia, and I am lucky enough to lead one of the work packages, which is called multi-level governance, which is very exciting. Next slide, please. And to sum it up, this is where all the fun will happen. We're going to put all of this amazing new knowledge into action. And you can say that what we will do is knowledge-based policy making and new governance structure making. And we will work on local level, at the national level, and at a global level. And it's me and several colleagues at WWF. It's Deloitte, it's Synthes, and it's House of Knowledge. And together we will solve a couple of tasks. So next slide, please. We have 3 main tasks, and I have said in short. First one we can start doing right now, or everyone we can start doing right now, but some of them are dependent on what the others find out. But what we're already doing is assessing gaps and needed solutions from a global to a local governance structure. And then we will assess the barriers and regulatory gaps which have been identified. And then we need to find the needed measures and assess the response on what our findings are. And it sounds like a lot, and I brought 2 examples to just try to put it into practice. So next slide, please. A couple of weeks ago, the government launched a new national strategy on plastics. And in the beginning of that strategy, they are talking about the need for more knowledge in order to identify the needed tools to tackle plastic pollution in Norway. So what we know is that if we know more and if we know how much plastic is in Norway, what can be recycled and what cannot, what sort of additive does it have, etc., etc., we can perhaps find new ways to govern it, which is very exciting. And already talked about regulatory approaches is the extended producer responsibility scheme, bans, and requirements in public procurement, which came yesterday. So a lot of things is happening, and this project is very, very practical at this time. Next slide, please. And the other example is what I was talking about earlier, the case for a new global treaty. We need the academic and scientific community on board if we want to have it science-based and also include a scientific body to the global treaty. And if we are to get the negotiation mandate, which we will, hopefully, we will need to go from why is this global treaty needed to how will it be put in place. And this is why we need this project. So this is very exciting, and I hope everybody will join us in this important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia. Yet again, we're very excited about Work Package 4 and all of our work packages. So now we're going to move on to multi-actor integration and communications, Work Package 5. You all have to put up with me a little while longer, and then we'll move on to our Q&A. So if everyone can just take a big deep breath, we are almost at the end of our Plasticene webinar kickoff series. So thank you all for being here today and who has still stuck around till the end. We just have one more work package left. So my name is Emily Cowan. I am working at Centef Ocean, and I am taking over lead for this kickoff webinar for Work Package 5. Our work package leader, Rachel Tiller, could not attend today due to personal reasons, so I will be giving an overview of this work package. Next slide, please. So in this work package, we like to call ourselves the home of the stakeholders. We want to bring together all of the stakeholders, find where they fit best in our different work packages, and really have synergy between our work packages. We don't want to overwork our stakeholders. We want them to join together in our workshops, hopefully fewer as possible as we have very busy schedules, we know, but we want to get the most out of the workshops. So our workshops are held, as I said before, with the needs of our different work packages, whether that is defining the plastic streams in Norway or defining the best path forward for a global solution. And so we will hold these workshops as a data gathering sessions where we'll get expert knowledge, which could also go towards policy advice in Norway and beyond. And as Rachel and myself are social scientists, we use social scientists methods in these workshops. So we can develop conceptual mapping, also fuzzy cognitive mapping, and decide future effects for regulatory need of plastic governance. Next, please. So what are the outcomes of this work package? Yes, home of stakeholders, integration, bringing together all of the other work packages, but we are also disseminating and communicating the activities or the databases from the other work packages. So we have first mapped out our stakeholders, which we have done before, and a lot of them were able to join this session today. And we will continue to do this updated throughout the entire project process, and ensuring that we're all interacting together with our stakeholders and our work packages. Also, what we get to do from our workshops that we hold and we gather our information from, we can produce popular science publications, also manuscripts for scientific journals, which other work packages will also have themselves. But you may be asking yourselves, okay, we're producing this data, but how are we getting it out? How are you, as a viewer at this kickoff meeting, able to access this information? Next slide. Well, thankfully, we are in Norway and we commit to gold open access and publishing all of our reports peer-reviewed on open access for anyone to view. So the cost is covered by us in the project, and that allows anyone, wherever they are in the world, to view our results and publications just by having a computer and internet access. And where can you find our results? You now know they're free and open to you, but where can you find them? Next slide. on our Plasticene website, of course. As a communications work package as well, we are in charge of creating the logos and setting up the brand for this project to really have interaction from not only Norway, but abroad, which is a big reason why we're having this webinar in English today. And this is our Plasticene website, where if you don't think you learned enough about the project, you can click on the About Me section on the website and discover a bit more, go into depth, find our contact information. This is also the area where you can find the research and results from each work package, and also where we will post our scientific publications. You can read more about our partners in the project, and also every month we will have a blog post, and you can keep following along. Next slide. On our social media pages. So Plasticene does have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn, we have Twitter, and we will also be updating with the scientific results from all of the work packages on our platforms. Next slide. And so you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at PlasticeneNFR, or you can simply just Google search plasticene.no to go to our main webpage. Next slide. So are there any questions? That's the end of work package 5. I want to thank you all for coming today and open the floor for some questions and answers. I know we might have lost a few people along the way, so we might not have. Yes, Viveka?
Yeah, I do have a question. It's a bit more on the technical art, not like technology, but for work package 1 and 2 regarding data, both on the material flows, stocks, and the economic side. There are, of course, some large challenges with the data and consistency of data, etc. But will you mainly use statistical data, or will you use some other type of sources or surveys or that kind of thing to find more out of the data gap to get more information on that data?
Perhaps I can say something. Of course, our approach will be first to look at what available statistics are there and what is accessible and quickly usable. But wherever we do not have data and we absolutely need something to be able to model, we would like to contact stakeholders or other actors who could possibly have this kind of data and would like to make it available to us. If that's not available either, I think then we have to lay on some assumptions in the worst case. But we do plan to collect also some data through information from stakeholders and through workshops.
I'm not sure if any of the other work package 2 or 3 wants to touch more upon that, or you can shake your head yes or no, and we can unmute you. Otherwise, do we have any other questions? I know it was a long webinar series today for our kickoff meeting, so if you think of any questions, you can of course email any of us, and you can find our information on the Plasticene project page. I don't know if Mimi, you want to say a few words at the
Yes,
end?
thank you, Emily. So I think I would just like to thank everyone for taking their time to listen in today. And if you know of anyone that wasn't here today, please send a link so they can go in and have a look at what they find interesting in this series. So we will post it, right, Emily, on our on the Plasticene webpage, and yeah, so it will be available for everyone who also wants to refresh. So thank you so much for listening in, and thank you, Emily, for taking us through this with a steady hand, and thanks to all the presenters Really great presentation. Thank you so much. I'm excited that the project has an official kickoff. Okay, so have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll speak to all of you soon, hopefully. Yeah. Bye-bye.